The floor of the Central African forest is a biological meat grinder. The dark soil is packed with aggressive predators hunting in the dark, and a newly hatched insect is immediately targeted as prey. When the Bombardier Beetle first emerges from its egg, it possesses none of the biological advantages it is famous for. It is a soft-bodied larva, entirely unarmored, lacking any offensive weapons, and completely exposed to the elements. Survival requires immediate, desperate shelter. To secure a narrow gap beneath a rotting log, the newborn larva has to physically wrestle with older, larger larvae, digging its tiny legs into the bark and pushing back until the competition gives up. Finding food is just as perilous. The larva relies on a scavenging strategy, tearing microscopic scraps from already dead insects. It eats pressed tight against the wood, constantly watching the ground for movement, terrified of larger predators dropping from the decaying bark above. Even a successful hunt usually ends in retreat. When the larva finally manages to find a vulnerable, fat grub in the soil, a massive centipede swiftly arrives to claim the meal. The beetle has to instantly abandon its food and squeeze flat into a narrow root gap to avoid being eaten alongside its own prey. In this early stage of life, staying small and remaining hidden is the insect's only actual defense. Every attempt to leave the safety of the log to find food carries a high probability of death. After months of bare survival and near misses, the exhausted larva's body stops wanting to move. It buries itself deep within the soil, curls into a tight space, and over several weeks rebuilds itself from the inside out, emerging as a hard-shelled adult. This diagram shows a simplified cross-section of the adult beetle's abdomen, revealing the binary chemical weapon system hidden beneath its new shell. Two separate, distinct fluid chambers sit side by side, holding highly reactive compounds safely apart. The beetle doesn't even know they are there until a threat triggers them. When an ant bites its leg, an involuntary biological reflex forces a valve to open. As you can see in the diagram, the two separate liquids flood into a mixing chamber and violently expel outward. The physical result is explosive. The chemical reaction creates a pressurized burst of boiling liquid that shoots from the tip of the abdomen, carrying enough kinetic force to blast the attacking ant sideways and leave it stunned on the forest floor. This accidental first firing changes the power dynamic on the forest floor. An insect that spent months as a soft, defenseless target now possesses a lethal, scalable deterrent. Armed with its chemical spray, the beetle's behavior shifts. It abandons its terrified scavenging to become an active hunter, walking openly through the leaf litter and intentionally stalking flies right out in the open. When stealth predators try to ambush it, the beetle responds instantly. As a hunting spider drops directly onto its back and flips it upside down, the beetle actively aims its abdomen and fires a direct burst of boiling liquid, forcing the burned spider to release its grip and fall away. Eventually, the beetle faces the ultimate ecological test. A massive amphibian spots the beetle moving across an open patch of ground, flicks out its sticky tongue, and swallows the armored insect completely whole in a fraction of a second. Trapped inside the dark, restrictive, fleshy walls of the toad's stomach, the beetle deploys an extreme internal countermeasure. It pushes its back end down and rapid fires its boiling chemical spray once, twice, and then a third time directly against the toad's internal organs. The walls of the stomach stop pressing inward and start violently pushing outward. A few seconds later, the toad's body heaves, its wide mouth opens, and the perfectly intact, living beetle is vomited back onto the forest floor. Surviving a predator's digestive tract proves exactly what this biology is capable of. The chemical spray is hot and fast enough to force an apex predator to surrender a swallowed meal, granting the beetle a near-invincible status against standard ecological threats. But biological superweapons have strict limits. Years later, the mature beetle encounters a sudden shift in its environment. The ground begins to move as hundreds of driver ants sweep through the leaf litter, completely surrounding its position. Against this kind of force, a localized weapon fails. The beetle blasts to the left, and a cluster falls back. It fires to the right, neutralizing another group. But the sheer volume of the swarm instantly fills the gaps, leaving the beetle with no clear path to safety. With its chemical reserves rapidly depleting and the ants beginning to climb its legs, the beetle is forced to retreat. It abandons the forest floor entirely, grabbing onto a nearby tree trunk and climbing high enough to wait out the endless marching column below. No biological mechanism is absolute. An extreme defensive weapon that easily defeats a massive amphibian can be entirely negated by a decentralized threat, attacking with overwhelming, relentless numbers. Sometime after its third year, the beetle is flying low between the trees when a bat suddenly intercepts it midair, violently clamping its sharp jaws directly onto the insect's hard armored shell. The beetle reacts with its standard defense, firing its boiling spray point-blank into the bat's mouth. The intense heat works exactly as designed, forcing the startled predator to open its jaws and drop its prey mid-flight. But gravity turns a successful defense into a fatal consequence. The beetle plummets to the ground and lands squarely on its back upon a perfectly flat, smooth piece of bark. The very anatomy that kept it alive now traps it. Its heavily armored, perfectly round defensive shell prevents its 6 legs from finding any grip or leverage on the smooth wood to flip its body over. It simply rocks side to side, unable to right itself. The defeat is agonizingly slow. A line of common foraging ants discovers the stranded beetle. They surround it, pulling at the microscopic gaps between its shell and abdomen, while the beetle's chemical weapon fires blindly and uselessly into the open air above. Even the most spectacular evolutionary adaptations cannot guarantee permanent invincibility. In the brutal reality of the natural world, a creature is only ever exactly one bad angle away from death.